we've gathered here today to sort of reminisce a bit about natural history. And I guess I just wonder, I'd be curious about Michael, Taylor, and Teddy in particular, your perspective on sort of the genesis of the project.
Why don't we start with your story?
Okay, hang on one sec. I'm recording and I need to get myself back on here. Okay, there. So people can actually see me when I talk. So this was and I think it was late in 2015. Me and some other Brit staff members were doing grant research because, generally in the fall and winter, that's when we do all our research to get our grants and such together. And we encountered an NEA and National Park Service partnership where the NEA was going to grant arts organizations to put on artistic projects of some form inside the national parks. And of course, we're not very far away from Crater Lake, naturally. So immediately, me and the other staff member, it was Sky Lois at the time, she and I both saw this kind of at the same time and were like, what if we did something at Crater Lake? And that same day, we sent the idea to Teddy as well. Hey, this came up. Why don't we do something at Crater Lake? And of course, Teddy, being who Teddy is, ran with the idea. And, we started brainstorming all sorts of crazy things from, having helicopters drop barges down onto the lake and have, giant speakers that shoot sound back up to the rim, all kinds of weird stuff.
I'd forgotten about the grant part being the initial seed.
It kind of was, yeah. I mean, we had talked about doing stuff anyway, but this was sort of the sort of kick in the pants we needed to actually do it.
I'm sitting here at home and I'm looking at my bookcase where I have in there a CD that Michael Gordon's, I guess it must have been, Michael, would it have been your publisher or I think it was your publisher? They sent me this CD, and we knew each other from the New World Symphony when you were having your piece premiered there, and I was assistant conductor, and we hadn't interacted for several years at that point. I remember it was the day Mark had asked who should write this piece. Who do you think? And for some reason it was like that same day the CD had come from your publisher, and I thought, gosh, I haven't heard any of Michael's music in a while. I popped it in. I never do that. I don't ever listen to CDs. In fact, I don't even have a CD player anymore. It's gone. And I started listening to it. I thought, well, this is really interesting. This sounds like something that I could hear this style of music up there at Crater Lake. And it was like it all clicked on that day. So that's what we called you, Michael, and I guess I'm curious, we got this great panel together, but Michael, I mean, that's probably an unusual call.
Yeah, especially since I had never heard of Crater Lake, and I was really like, well, what's that? And I was like, I got an invitation, come out and see it, and that was August, I think, right? July or August, yes, 2015. Yes. I went around the lake with you, Teddy, and with Craig Ackerman, who was, what a trip. He's the superintendent. He's the ranger of the park, and we were going around. At first the initial phone call was like, well, we've got 40 musicians, which seems like a lot. But when we got there, it was so awe-inspiring and so huge, and you realize, oh, we're just a little speck, and 40 musicians, we're not even going to make a dent, I don't even know what we could do. And that's how the project just kept growing during the day. As Mark said, just said, well, is there anybody else? And at the end of the day, when one of the rangers said that there's a group from the Klamath tribe that come up here. This is their ritual grounds, and they come up here to do sacred performances. And I was I was like, well, can I meet them? Is it possible they might get involved? And at the end of the day, Craig kind of challenged me. He was like, you got to come back here in winter because it's only like this in July and August. And so I went back in January and, stayed out there for 10 days and then, was able to meet Taylor and the Steiger Butte drum and go and hear a rehearsal. And, that really kind of, it was like all the pieces in a certain sense were coming together.
Well, but one of my biggest regrets is that I wasn't there for that famous meeting. I've only seen the recovered cell phone footage of the meeting. What was that like? So Taylor, I mean, I'm so grateful that happened because, I mean, I don't know if we'd ever connected, and look at all this journey that we've all gone through between that time years ago and now, and here we are reminiscing. But Taylor, what was that like for you? I mean, when you got a call from the orchestra and a composer, what was that like?
I think it was, at first I thought, really, is this true? Because at the time I was an elected official on our tribal council. The Steiger Butte singers are, generational singers. And so I used to sing with them and we powwowed all over their huge Pacific Northwest drum. And I remember, Mark, you'll have to help me on this. I know an email came, and I'm the person that at the tribe, if an email comes, then I get it. But when I seen this one, I was going, symphony? Well, what does that mean? Like, what? And he was, pretty diligent. Like, remember, I think I'm a little ashamed. I think I might have just passed on the first email and was like, oh, that's such a big, large project, and came back around. Then I think I called you, and you said, no, this is really happening, and we want to know if this is possible. When I talked to Jackie, she's one of the lead singers, and she said, I don't know, like, how would we do that? We don't sing with music, and we don't read music, and how does drumming incorporate it? How would we know where to come in or any of that? And I said, I don't know, but there's a guy that's here. I guess he's a bigwig. I said, for Michael, I said, I guess he's a bigwig, and he's here, and we can meet him.
Tell us a little bit about the group. There are actually things that I've never, I maybe was too embarrassed to ask because we were too far into it. But I've always wondered, a few things about the setup. I mean, like, how does it come to be that you have the arrangement that you have, which is, well, first of all, it's a family organization. It's also called the Drum. You call yourselves the Drum, and you literally sit around the drum, like, and everybody has a mallet, and I'm just so curious because, once we started, we went so fast that I didn't ever have time to fully go back and interview like this. And I'm kind of curious, how the configuration of your music making came to be, and how it's structured.
Oh yeah, well, and these would be better answered. I'll do my best. Best answered by Bill. He's the drum keeper. He's the head of the Bill Jackson Sr. He's the head, and I've always been a dancer, a powwow dancer, and so I've always known about drums, seen drums at every powwow, and danced all my life, but I'd never sang. And one of the things that started when I was there was the girls were really young, and there's Jackie, Jenny, Jessie, Byron, Little Bill, Joyce, Uncle, Rosemary, Auntie, and Big Bill. And so when we started sitting around the drum and we say our prayers and we put water on the drum because it's a living, live thing, you know, spiritually for us. And we place tobacco on the drum because tobacco, when you light tobacco, it carries your prayers up to Creator. We put water on the drum and we sing, and we ask to sing in a good way because this drum has been blessed. When we start sitting around the drum and singing, it's like anything else. It's kind of like chairs, I guess, in a symphony. First chair, second chair, third chair. You know, your stronger singers. Maybe you have two that mesh really well together. And so normally I would sit by Byron if he was on this side because he's so powerful, and maybe Jackie or Joyce on this side because I can go real high, but I have this kind of more like booming voice. I'm very loud, but I don't have the melodies that the other girls have. So we would just sit around and determine like you guys do, well, who sits best where. And I really liked that layout when Teddy was up there and you were putting people like, well, no, let's put the horns over in the trees. Oh no, let's let these get, because you were determining how that music sounded. And so that's what we do on the drum. And Big Bill he would stop and say, okay, you know, Taylor, switch with so-and-so, because he can hear that. And that's kind of how this drum originated. And they still go and sing. I haven't sang with them as much over the last few years, but when it's projects like this and things we're doing, then I come back in and help with that and get back. I guess it's kind of like going back with my family that I haven't seen for a while.
Right.
Wow. Well, I'm so glad I asked because I just learned so much, and at one point it was just too late to go back.
I know every time we did the same thing because we were going like, oh my gosh, no, who is Teddy? And then as we learned and then we're like, then when we went to Kentucky, we're going, and Teddy's at Kentucky too. And what does Mark do? And Michael Gordon too. And we was just kind of going like, we didn't know we were with superstars.
Oh, well, neither did we, but I remember because I want to bring in Conrad, because actually the weird thing is that the day I met you, Taylor, and the whole drum, that was actually when we were all situated together preparing for our first rehearsal. And you remember that you were all sitting around. It was at the lodges where we were all staying, the whole orchestra. And so there was a sensory kind of overload because we're trying to put an orchestra together, no amplification, in the middle of the woods to rehearse before we go up to the full Crater Lake experience. I'm hearing everybody warming up, walking around. We haven't even seen each other in a year because, you know, Brit Orchestra only plays once a year for a couple of weeks. And I'm meeting you guys for the first time, and we're talking about how we're going to do the cues. And of course, you know, Michael's there getting ready, and that's when, you know, Conrad, you signed up for this. You're a principal trumpet player of Brit and the Indianapolis Symphony, but I mean, what did you think you were signing up for, and what was it like for you when you first started working on this thing?
Yeah, I mean, I don't remember what my first thought was when I did sign up to do this, but I mean, you guys know me. I'm never like shy about just like diving off the cliff to just try some stuff, and especially when it comes to Brit, I'm kind of down for whatever. So I sort of just was like, yeah, of course. Yeah, whatever, you know, we'll see how that goes. And I mean, it doesn't matter how hard I would have tried or how crazy I would have dreamed. If you told me to try to envision what this would have been, I wouldn't have come close to what this final project actually became. And when we first got there on that first day, though, it was like chaos in like the best way possible. Yeah, we were like just like in the dirt, kind of watching all this stuff, like everybody with their different instruments kind of come in and funnel in. And very quickly though, I remember like having that sort of awareness of like, this is something really special. I don't know what it's going to be like. And then it far surpassed anything I could have expected in that way, emotionally, just life-wise, it's something I still look back on with like insane fondness and nostalgia. And like, I mean, it's definitely the thing I'm probably most proud of being a part of, which is not even anything I really think about or try to quantify anyway as like a classical trumpet player. Like, oh yeah, I'm really proud of that Mahler 5 or whatever. I don't really think about it, anything in that way. But this project, though, for sure, which is why I'm so grateful there was a documentary, because I go back and watch it all the time just for to remind myself of what it's like to be connected in that way to stuff like this. It's really powerful. But yeah, it was wild. That first day was nuts. That was crazy.
I remember how enthusiastic you were about it. And, you know, something that Mark and I talked a lot about was, you know, the conditions for the musicians, because, you know, most professional orchestras have a lot of protections in their contracts about how musicians are supposed to be treated, especially when they're doing something outside their normal concert hall. And we knew that we couldn't accommodate any of those things. Not to mention, the Brit Orchestra had never really gone outside of our normal home in Jacksonville, Oregon, and so this was a new thing for us. And it's not like this was a tour to Carnegie Hall or to, you know, to the London proms where we, you know what I mean. So anyway, it was you know, a big question about what would the musician experience be like, and I guess that's the you know, question for you. How did that end up being?
Yeah, I mean, there's probably a wide variety of answers you might get depending on which instrument you would ask. And I know, I'll just say this now, I know for sure the string players just inherently had more of a challenge because heat affects their instrument differently. So if like you put somebody like me who's like a total desert rat and like loves being outside in the middle of the sun with like a metal trumpet, like what's the worst that happens? Like I get a little bit of a tan and my horn kind of goes a little bit sharp, but like it's not the end of the world. But I do get how for like woodwinds and stuff, the heat can really affect their instruments. And so there was, I think, some apprehension of within the musician ranks of like, what's this going to be like? I definitely was more of a like, I'm just going to roll with it. Like, this is going to be awesome kind of vibe. But I think that the fact that we were able to pull this off definitely does speak to kind of the spirit of the Brit Orchestra a little bit. Cause I think there is a little bit more of a, let's look at sort of the greater good of what, you know, we're a part of here long-term, rather than like, oh, it's a little toasty outside for this half hour that we have to play this amazing piece. You know, people kind of just power through stuff in a different way. And I mean, yeah, it's kind of, you know, even something on a way more colloquial level. I mean, Jeff Garza, who's the principal horn, took a picture of the two of us, like while we're sitting next to each other at the rehearsal. And it's like literally me holding a trumpet looking like a doofus, and like Jeff, and then Crater Lake is like directly the background of this photo. And it's like, you look at something like that and you're just like, how unreal is it that we're sitting in this magical place with like instruments about to perform? I don't know. It's really quite something.